Welcome to KubeFM, a podcast where you can expand your Kubernetes knowledge, follow the latest tools and trends, and learn directly from the experts. In order for a project to become graduated, it has to go through a different series of phases in order to show that it's fully mature and ready to be adopted by many, many end users out there in the world. Kubernetes event-driven autoscaling, or better known as the KEDA project, recently became a graduated project. It started out in 2019, collaboration between Microsoft and Red Hat before being donated to the CNCF. Daniela and I got a chance to talk to Jorge Turrado, who is a KEDA maintainer and is also a CNCF ambassador. Let's hear what he had to say. So, in today's episode of KubeFM, we are joined by someone who's much more than a person. We can say is sort of a superhuman, a maintainer, a wonderful colleague, a great speaker. He's not wearing his bathrobe right now, but normally you can find him wearing that. He's an incredible person. His name is Jorge Turrado. Lucky enough that we live just an hour away from each other. But more importantly, he has an interesting background that started in something quite different. So Jorge, do you want to tell us about who you were before you became the KEDA maintainer that you are today?
Yeah, for sure. I work at passing wires because I was electrician. Then I developed robotics. And then I decided to work in software because it's really nice work, a better work than being in the floor with the wire. No, I'm kidding. I love the software. I started developing my own stuff when I was a teenager, and basically I was pivoting or changing until I reached my current position. Currently I work as staff SRE in SCRM, the Lidl Digital Hub, Lidl the supermarket. And before that, I work also as SRE in Doc Planner Tech. Then I work for Plain Concept and as a software developer. So I have touched all the phases in the software development. Before I started as developer, I swapped to cloud engineer, more or less. And then SRE /
So what's your background? Is it Java?
Yeah, I have been in all the sites, except in front. I have a serious problem. I can't understand how the browser works. Maybe that's why I prefer the CLI.
Okay. Okay. So how did you move from Java to cloud stuff? I mean, Java is quite, a lot of verbose and, sort of enterprisey. And then on the other side, there is a lot of configuration. So how did that happen?
I didn't start with Java. I started with C++, and then I switched to C#. But the way was almost natural because I'm in Plain Concept as a consultancy suppliers. I worked in different projects, and I have the option for just moving myself to more infrastructure-related stuff. I started with Kubernetes, 5 or 6 years ago. I was lucky because there was a project that I could work for and learn about Kubernetes. And Kubernetes was it was like, okay, this is the future. I don't know if in 10 years or in 20 years this will continue being the future. But nowadays, this is the future. Is the way to go, because we have started with the typical traditional servers, and they don't scale. You have the other option, that virtual servers. I remember that we switched from the physical servers to virtual machines, but that was a pain. And Kubernetes, the containers engine in general, is a nice mix between them. And when I started with Kubernetes, I decided to...
What version was that?
I think that the PetSets...
I was about to say, were the PetSets there?
I think that PetSets were just removed or around there.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Now it's known as a stateful set. In the beginning, they name it PetSet. Pet from pet, because that world is more fancy and you love it as your pet.
I mean, I think it is somewhat endearing, in particular when you're talking about things that aren't so tangible, bringing those concepts to life with something that's more relatable. I mean, look at all the things, the mythology have gone around, whether it's kubectl or kubectl, taking that to a different level. But it's interesting to see how OG someone is based on, do you still call it a PetSet by accident? That's good. But I guess in your experience then, getting involved in, contributing and then becoming a maintainer, tell us more about how that got started. And then we want to hear more about, how you got involved in KEDA, what it is, and what you've been doing there.
Okay. Basically, I started using KEDA before joining as maintainer, obviously. But I started with KEDA maybe 3 or 4 years ago because in plain concept, we work really close to Microsoft technologies. And Azure Function is a Microsoft technology for serverless based on events. And KEDA came to fill that gap in Kubernetes for being able to scaling based on those events. And I started to using it. And when I joined to Doc Planner, we had a use case where we need a rabbit feature. And I'm not the guy who just open an issue crying, please add me this feature. I try to, if it's in a language that I manage or that I at least know a bit about it, I will give a try and I will try to do by myself because I understand that maintainers are busy and they don't have time. It's not a commercial treatment. I started contributing with KEDA in some features, and to be honest, I started to contribute more frequently for improving my Golang skills.
It's a fair reason.
Yeah.
There is another maintainer, Zbigniew Robalik, another maintainer, who teach me a lot of stuff related with Golang, and I started with the contributions for improving my Golang language, my Golang skill. And after several months contributing frequently, they proposed me to join the team, and I have been in that hole since that.
Back to RabbitMQ. I mean, at the time, you must have had the choice to choose between KEDA, something new that not many people are using, and then on the other side, I had the usual what I would basically consider the standard, Prometheus plus the adapter, which is going to integrate with Kubernetes. Was that not an option at the time? Why did you go with KEDA? Must have been so new.
Depends, because at the end of the day, if you are using Prometheus, you are scrapping the metrics. So all the information that you have for scaling is the information that you could get from Prometheus. And not all the times is super useful. For instance, and I have a case in a guy who asked in Slack channel, no, but we have a slow responses scaling. We are scaling after 3 or 4 minutes. That's not work for us. Yeah, but that's the price that you have to pay when you are scaling based off monitoring tooling. If you have an option for going directly to the metric source, such as KEDA going through Rabbit or Kafka or any scaler, you are saving the scrapping or the observability time there.
Yeah, I think at this point it's worth taking a step back and explain how KEDA works, right? So I think we discussed we jumped onto the two options that you usually have, so KEDA versus Prometheus and the adapter. But like you said, KEDA is a lot quicker and gives you a lot more options. So what's the architecture of this scaling technology? Can you do a quick summary for us?
Yeah, for sure. Basically, KEDA is a group of 3 different components nowadays. Those components are the operator, the metric server, and the admission web. And this last component is optional. KEDA deploy its own CRDs, scale objects, state jobs, triggers. Basically, KEDA supports 4 different custom resources for different stuff. And KEDA, when you deploy your scale job, the scale jobs are basically a wrapper on top of HPA. So the operator will deploy an HPA with some external metrics configured, and we configure the metric server, KEDA's metric server, for serve those metrics. So KEDA is relying totally on the HPA controller because it's a well-tested piece in Kubernetes. For us, it's better than reinvent the wheel. And how it does it depends totally on the scaler, because we support Azure, we support AWS, GCP.
I had a look at the list, and it's just never ending. I was about to ask, how do you manage such a huge list? I mean, at the beginning it was small. I remember at the beginning of a project it was manageable, but now it's just like a never-ending list.
During the years, we have learned some lessons, and one of that lesson is that each new maintainer must have a scaler. Each scaler must have end-to-end test.
Okay.
That's a strong requirement. If you don't develop the end-to-end test, we won't merge the scaler. Why? Because, as you said, how can we maintain them if we don't know about the technology? Because there are two different technologies, and you can't know about 60 different technologies. So for us,
who says you can't?
I thought sysadmins were superhumans.
Yeah, you're an electrician.
Yeah, but I'm not sysadmin. Remember that I'm an electrician. I'm there to connect the wires.
Maintainer and connector. All right, so we got that.
That's it. The point is that during the years we have learned in the worst way those lessons, and now we have really, in my opinion, really complex end-to-end suite where we test, I don't remember, 80, 90 different end-to-end cases, because we test the scalers, but we also test the secret provider, some internal stuff.
Jorge, as someone who's very conscious, very aware of his environment, I want to know more about the carbon-aware KEDA operator and what it's doing, how this came about, who was behind it, what people should know about it.
Microsoft presented this scaler on KubeCon in the keynote, the first day in KubeCon. They presented this scaler. We weren't related, or we weren't working on this directly, but we try to contribute with a seed. No, it's not a seed. A user. I don't. Terrible with the number, with the naming. Sustainability special interest group or user. I don't remember the keyword. Sorry, but we were there because in KEDA, our goal is to make the things more efficient. And usually that means better for the environment. And this is the next step. If you have not critical workloads who can be or which can be delayed to other moments, this scaler allows to, limiting the scaling out or limiting the workload size for helping the environment and the sustainability in general. With this scaler, with this carbon-aware scaler, basically, Microsoft improved or extended KEDA for reducing the amount of concurrent instances based on any carbon API, because I didn't know 1 year ago, but there are public APIs who say in this region, the carbon footprint is X, and they give you the carbon footprint for a region at any moment. So you can use that API for saying, if a region, the carbon footprint is too high, and I have workload non-critical, let's move them to another moment when the carbon footprint is slower or is smaller. And basically, that's the goal of that operator. It's nice. We are talking internally about how is the best way to integrate it, because now it's an external stuff, but we are working to integrate that functionality as internal stuff within KEDA for not having to deploy any other operator. Because being true, having Azure in the naming is a problem for some people. I know.
I can see that. There is another sort of project related to KEDA, which is, I would say, at least as someone using KEDA, I find it very valuable, and that's the HTTP add-on. So currently, as far as I know, that's it's been advertised as beta. It's not part of the project, but really is, and it's extremely interesting and too useful. Can you give us a little bit of a summary of that?
Yeah, the HTTP add-on is a component for providing first-class support to HTTP workload. So if you want to scale based on HTTP, for instance, using Prometheus, that's not enough for all the cases. In our case, we use CRM, we use Prometheus for scaling based on HTTP traffic. But in workload, we can't scale to zero. So we have the guarantee that we will have at least one instance, at least 2 or 3 for availability, but we can ensure that a server will be there for answering any request. But going forward in this approach of, okay, we want to reduce the cost, we want to be more cost efficient, why I can't scale to zero? For scaling to zero, we need a component in the middle who holds the request before the backend is ready. And the HTTP add-on is that component. Basically, the HTTP add-on is another component that we didn't integrate with KEDA core, basically because it's too different and it has its own problems, totally unrelated with KEDA problems. But at the end of the day, the add-on is an interceptor in the middle that you send all the traffic to it, and it checks. The target workload has at least one instance. No, I will hold the request until it has at least one instance. When the target workload is ready, I will pass the instance to the request to it. This change or this feature allows a cold start. So if you have 0 instances, you can start up your pod for just one request, and after the request, you can kill the pod automatically. So you can do an efficient scaling based on HTTP traffic. The problem with it is that it's too different from the common KEDA problems, and we are actively looking for help on it because the HTTP protocol itself and the HTTP scenario change a lot. We have just integrated support to HTTP 2, and now there is HTTP 3 that we need to integrate there. It needs a really, really hard work.
And on top of that, I think, at least the last time I used it, the plan was, okay, you deploy the interceptor. The interceptor is going to look at all the requests passing through. It's going to decide if it is time to scale or not, right? And then there was like a very small note saying, and by the way, this in the future might not be needed because we have OpenTelemetry, right? And today I just had a look at the roadmap and I found the OpenTelemetry scaler as well. So what is going to be the future of this HTTP add-on? Is it going to be OpenTelemetry?
They are totally different stuff.
Okay.
I mean, OpenTelemetry is just for observability. You cannot, the problem about holding the request during cold start is still there. If you use, or even if you don't use OpenTelemetry. OpenTelemetry at the end of the day is an observability protocol for transferring telemetry, recording, sending, and processing telemetry. The OpenTelemetry integration is for sending the metrics also using OpenTelemetry instead of only exposing them through Prometheus endpoint. But it's totally unrelated. The problem with the HTTP add-on is that until we can buy at least 2, let's say, full-time maintainers, not full-time because they invest their whole day, but at least 2 persons engage with the project for solving issues, helping to newcomers, and those kind of things. We can't say that it's production grade a production grade component.
Yeah, and this is the part of the podcast where we let everyone know that Jorge has been a Microsoft MVP for at least how many years?
5.
I don't remember.
5.
Something actually I want to touch on a little bit too is you've now taken this, from sandbox to incubation, to graduated. Along the way, getting other organizations to participate, as well as contributors, like you mentioned, there are folks out there that would like to help out with the HTTP 3 challenges they're going to be facing to get involved. But how has this been, through the time that you spend first as a contributor, then becoming a maintainer, interacting, making it attractive for other organizations to get involved? As advice for any open source projects, what's your experience been like there, and what would you recommend?
It's a good question, and this time I don't have a good answer for you, because
we will accept your bad answer.
The public image or the public stuff, or how to engage the community, I think that we have failed a bit in that topic, because maybe due to maintainer council capability, we have been 5 maintainers. We are 5 maintainers. And we focus on improving KEDA more than marketing, more than those stuff. And I know that other projects make conference. There are conferences about Advocacy, IstioCon. There are a lot of conferences. We don't have the capability for doing
You
those.
build such a nice product that doesn't need any sort of marketing.
Our goal is make the autoscaling that simple. And maybe, as we don't have any competitor, let's say competitor, I don't consider competitor in an open source ecosystem. Competitor is not the word, in my opinion, but let's try to use it for understanding. Argo CD has flags. Linkerd has Istio. KEDA hasn't got any competitor nowadays, because we don't try to do a lot of things. We try to do one thing, making the autoscaling that simple in Kubernetes. And I hope that we are achieving that goal. So I guess that we have talked about this sometimes, Mark. We don't do, who has needed something based on events in Kubernetes knows KEDA. That's the way.
Which is basically all developers using Kubernetes.
But it's worked. And so with that in mind, what are the things that are on your roadmap, for the next steps? What can we expect from KEDA?
In probably in next release, we are going to introduce in my opinion, a game changer with the autoscaling, because nowadays, as we rely totally on HPA controller basically requests all the metrics and perform a max operation between them. This is not really efficient in all the cases, because if you have a database and a queue, Rabbit, for example, if the queue grows, maybe it's because the database is dead. And having just a measure, scale based on the queue, usually is not enough. Having an option for inside KEDA, applying a custom formula saying, go through the database and get the usage. And if the usage is higher than 60%, reduce proportionally the queue length from Rabbit for not overloading the database. I mean, adding custom formulas to the information that KEDA exposed to the HPA controller is a nice feature that for me is a game changer in the autoscaling in Kubernetes.
How is that implemented? Do I write the formula in the YAML, or do you have like a small engine that I can program in WAS?
The PR is open, and we are reviewing it. But the original idea that we are discussing is you can extend the scale object with other section, formula, modifiers, whatever. It's still in discussion, where you can say, apply this formula. As each trigger can be named, has a name, you could just introduce, and we are introducing a library package for processing formulas on the fly. So if you can say, I have 3 triggers, Rabbit, Database, and Prometheus. Okay, I name this out then as Rabbit, Database, and Prometheus, and I apply the formula. And the formula is, quote, Database plus Prometheus less whatever.
Okay.
And the engine will process that formula in real time.
All right, but Jorge, when do you sleep?
I don't know. When I would be dead.
Sorry, Dan, I cut you off.
No, it's all right. It's all right. I was about to say, it's only 5 of them.
I was just going to say.
It's only 5 of them. They do all of this. So, and then they also brag that they are not able to do any sort of advocacy about the project. I mean,
how can you?
Sure.
Now, I have to say that we have amazing and awesome contributors who are doing the majority of the features. Because obviously, 5 guys there, we don't have the capacity for addressing all the things. And we don't do the things. We have a nice community which is growing. All the weeks have, or all the months appears a new contributor. We are. I have to say that after the graduation, I personally have noticed that the interaction has grown. More people in Slack channel, more issues, more PRs. That is good and also a problem because we are 5 maintainers. We need to think about how we are organizing the stuff and maybe
superhumans.
We need to think about how we can manage this situation for not dying by success.
Yeah. So you have an electrician, a plumber, a painter, a mason. You got one of each area covered. Now, I guess I think there's a lot to be learned from this. It's incredible to see how far the project has come, and particularly, like you said, without having some of the outreach or public-facing visibility that other projects have had. Jorge, for people that want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do it?
I am in a lot of different Slack workspace, in Kubernetes, in CNCF.
Avengers.
Microsoft Teams.
Yeah, I'm in Teams.
I heard the alerts. Yeah, I heard the notification.
Yeah. Microsoft what? Now, you can try in your Slack workspace adding at Jorge Turrado. Maybe I will be there. Let's try. Who knows?
You're also a CNCF ambassador. We're hosting meetups in Bilbao. Yeah.
I'm on X. For me, still be Twitter. It's still Twitter.
It's still PetSets and it's still Twitter. That's the title of this podcast.
I'm on Twitter at the handle is at Jorge Turrado. I get GitHub, Jorge. Just type in Jorge Turrado in Google. There are a lot of communication channels. I have all of them open.
Get in touch and become a maintainer. That's it. That's the call.
Jorge, do you know which 3 tools you would take with you to a desert island?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, good.
Well, you can tell us now. We're gonna read.
Yeah. Spoilers. All right, so Prometheus is 1.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
How do you want to monitor your cluster without Prometheus? You are so rich, I guess, because Azure Monitor, AWS CloudWatch, GCP monitoring stuff, all of them are super expensive. You should be rich. I don't know. Maybe you are okay.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Be honest.
Use for monitoring whatever happens in the cluster.
But you can always switch the storage, right, and just store the last couple of days.
So apart from Prometheus, what are the other 2 tools?
Is it too ugly if I say KEDA?
No.
Oh, I think that's fair, right?
It's not surprising. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
You would be a bad maintainer if you did.
Yeah, I would expect you to be the first, to be honest. I'm a little bit disappointed now.
and the third one probably would be Argo, or Argo CD, or Argo Rollout more in deep. We are starting the integration of Argo Rollout because we have integrated Argo CD. And the feedback from our development teams is really good. Really, really, really nice feedback. Like, in the beginning, I thought, okay, another tool that I have to learn. And after 2 or 3 weeks using Argo CD, my mind has changed and how could I live without Argo CD before now?
Perfect. Well, Jorge, thank you very much for your time today. And yeah, we look forward to seeing the next steps. Very action-packed roadmap. Folks that want to get involved in the project, check it out. It's an amazing space, very dynamic with a lot of things going on there. So yeah, thank you very much for your time. We'll be seeing you soon.
You're welcome.
Thank you.